you're like the next generation's Heather Petrie, where I feel like you always just brought really positive energy and were a positive person to be around. And so it's fun to talk with you during these pandemic days.
Yeah, those are some big shoes to fill. I don't think I could ever fill Petey's shoes. I mean, she is a phenomenal person, and I learned so much from her. So that's even to be even in the same sentence as Heather Petrie is making me giddy. So that's very nice of you.
Hey, so we'll get right into it. We'll take some questions here as well as they come along. But this whole week's theme of At Home has been competition. And when I was thinking about the idea of competing, we're talking to Olympians, talking to coaches, but then the idea of being ready to compete and the idea of being a goalie came to mind because sometimes you're starting the game, sometimes you're coming in off the bench, sometimes you don't know when you're going to play. You were in that position where you were both. You were the starter some days, you were the backup others. When you weren't starting, how did you stay ready to get out there if they needed you?
Well, it really all comes down to being prepared for that moment. And we talk about it a lot in the higher levels, but also in the younger levels. It's really important when you're at practice to practice like you would be playing, right? So like you would prepare for a test in school, it's the same as in water polo. So every single day in practice, I'm preparing for that game moment because in all reality, games are where it's so fun to play. Everyone loves to play games, but if you don't put the work in practice every single day, every minute of practice, your games aren't going to go like you want them to go. So I think being prepared for the moment when he calls my name, it could be in the middle of a timeout, it could be in the middle of a quarter, the end of the quarter. I knew I had put the work in to be able to jump in and compete at my best. And it just all comes down to preparation, I think.
You had those times, whether it was UCLA or Team USA, where you were the starter and you could go into a season or a tournament and know odds are unless I get hurt or I just start playing very poorly, I'm going to start and play almost every minute of this game. When you're in that position, how are you helping your backups and the other bench players so that they can be ready?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the same preparation mindset. At the same time, I'm, giving them some advice like during the game, watch what's going on during the game. Make sure you know who their best shooters are, who's shooting a ton, who's not shooting as much, what defenses are we running. So really paying attention and keeping a log throughout the game. So if all of a sudden you're being put in the fourth quarter, you're not surprised by what's about to hit you. Same thing in practice. So pushing each other in the pool. When it came down to it for the Olympics, it was me and Ashley Johnson, right? So every day, we're pushing each other in the pool, making sure we're prepared. And I think having that trust and that respect for each other and really, grinding and competing against each other every single day prepares you for that moment, no matter if you're starting the game and you play the whole time or you're on the bench for 3 quarters and you play the last quarter.
And you mentioned competing with Ashley for that spot, and there were certain tournaments, and the Olympics was one where you were in the backup role, she's in the starting role. But if you watch back any of those games and something good happens, you are one of the first people who is excited and happy. And what was your role? How would you describe the way that you tried to be on the bench to try and have a positive impact on the game, even if you aren't going to be logging a single minute?
Yeah, you talked about, Heather Petrie is a perfect example of this, energy. I tell my players that I coach now, if there's no energy on the bench, when we make a stop on defense, when we score a goal, if you're energized and you're cheering your teammates on, it just elevates your level of play, I think, more. And that's something I really tried to embody because at the end of the day, when we got to the Rio games, I wasn't the starter. So I had to be like, okay, what is my next role? What role can I fill even if I'm on the bench? Because for us, I think we were successful because it didn't matter who was in the pool or on the bench. Everyone was pulling in the same direction. We all wanted to win because we wanted the person next to us to succeed. So I think, being that energy for the people who were in the pool, and also knowing that they had my back when I jumped in, that's huge. And I think there was like one time when I got to play in the gold medal game and I made a huge stop, and those pictures of the bench, they make me so emotional because I knew that my teammates had my back no matter what, and we had put the work in together for so long. And so I think having energy on the bench and learning early for me that your worth on the team isn't directly linked to how many minutes you play. The people on the bench and even the girls who didn't make the final roster for the Olympics, they played a huge role in us winning that medal. And so it's just a huge team effort. And if I had to be on the bench and I had to cheer as loud as I can, that's what I was going to do to get that gold for my teammates.
You took the words right out of my mouth, because I was thinking about that save you made at the end, and we were just watching back some of the replays of the games the last couple of weeks because they were showing them on NBC, and you don't get that kind of reaction from the bench if you haven't put in the work to be a teammate that everyone is really happy to support. So, like you said, it was the end of the game, and obviously people know the result, but the reaction, there was maybe no bigger celebration from the bench during that whole game than that save at the end. That it has to really validate the approach that you took to try and be a supportive teammate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's one picture that I saw, and I was in the game, and it's in black and white. It's like one of my favorite pictures, because the whole tournament, that's what was happening on the bench. It didn't matter, who was in, and even the coaching staff too. We're all moving towards the same goal, and however we were going to get there, if we had to only play the same 7 players, we were going to do it, because that's what it took. But I think that was a real strength of our team, was that we, supported each other, and we had pushed each other every single day in practice. So we, no matter who was in, we were trusted each other with to play at our best. And so, yeah, it was great.
You were talking about coaching these days, and I can only imagine the amount of lessons you learned from being a player that you've taken into coaching. Is there one big thing or 2 big things that, as you've gotten more into this coaching life, you really realize that you've kind of picked up from being a player at a high level?
Yeah, well, one, I think I had been coaching for 2 weeks, and I called Adam and I apologized for all the eye rolls, all the turning to the back of my head. It definitely is a whole different ballgame being a coach, but I'm learning so much, and I'm just trying to soak in as much as I can. I've only had about a year of head coaching under my belt, and so I think just transferring from player to coach, something that I really pay attention to is just routine, and the little things are the most important. So I remember my first day of head coaching my high school team, I made sure they knew that being on time is huge for me. So just little things that you wouldn't think matter make the biggest difference. So being on time, we talk a lot about, my parents always told me, you can only control what you can control. So there's a lot of things we can't control, but as a player, you can control your attitude, your effort, you can control being on time, which was huge for me. So just taking away the little things, as well as my athletic, knowledge that I have, but just things on being a responsible person and a good teammate, I think.
You've probably had to deal with this as a coach now, as you're selecting lineups and figuring out who's going to play. But thinking back to when you were playing, and goalie's that one spot that is so black and white. You're either the starter or you're not. Everyone else on the bench could theoretically have a little bit more movement to kind of get into the game. Not that you can't sub in as a goalie, but in those moments when you didn't get the top spot, and this is a lesson for everyone, but how do you handle that situation? You do everything that you think you're supposed to do to get to where you want to be, and in sports, right, sometimes it just doesn't happen for you. So how do you take that and turn it into something that's going to be a good thing, or that is going to be a positive, or that's going to allow you to still stay ready if they do need you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. It's hard sometimes, and especially at a young age. So, high school age kids, it's hard to, come to terms with the fact that normally as goalies, one athlete plays usually. And so I think it's more about what can I do to improve, or what can I do to really be pushing my teammates. And it comes back to being a positive person on the bench. And sometimes it's not the easiest, but your team is going to be more successful if they know that you have their backs, even though the path that maybe you thought you may be taking isn't happening, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And I think just at a young age, there's just so much that you can learn from watching and from seeing the game. And that's something that I think I took into account, and just, asking questions and not being afraid to communicate with your coach and ask them what maybe they're looking for or what they think you could improve on, because those are questions that are really intimidating to ask sometimes as a young person. But the more you're comfortable communicating with your teammates and your coach, I think the better you'll become and more secure in who you are as a player.
We're talking with Sami Hill, 2016 Olympic gold medalist, longtime water polo player, and now coach. And getting a lot of love here in the comments. Some of your old teammates popping by. KK Clark, Cammy Craig here.
Hi,
Just
Kate. Hi,
scrolling,
Cam.
just scrolling back to see if there's any other questions that have come in. If you have a question for Sami, feel free to drop that in the comments section. Let's see here. We had one that came across talking about subbing. What are the conversations like as you switch in a game from one goalie to the next? What are you saying to each other?
Let's see. For Ashley and I, it's usually a chest bump and like, great job, you got it, girl. You go, girl. I got your back. Those kinds of things. Yeah, it's just all about positivity. And Ashley, like, if she was in first, I'm like, thanks for putting the groundwork down. Like, it's my turn to go to work. Those kinds of things. But Ashley and I, always a chest bump or a fist bump or something. Always.
This week's theme is competition. We talked with Wolf Weigo and Tony Azevedo earlier in the week, and they were talking about their competitive nature. Tony brought up an interesting point. As he got older in his career, became a leader, different teammates needed to hear things differently, right? So you could really get into someone's face about something, and that's what they needed to be motivated. And then others required a softer touch. As you've gotten into coaching, how important has it been to learn what way to speak to each player and what works for them?
I mean, huge. And at the beginning of my career as an athlete, you can ask some of my UCLA teammates and even my USA teammates, like, I struggled with that because in the heat of the moment, I'm just yelling. Like, doesn't matter who you are. I'm captain of the defense usually. Like, I'm just yelling. And so sometimes my tone could get a little snippy. And I think as I got older and I kind of understood what my teammates needed from me, I think I got a little bit better. But especially as a coach, and especially because I'm so uber competitive and I get really fired up in the moment, especially as a coach, I needed to learn how to approach a situation differently. And I think it's been a huge learning experience for me, but it's really worked out in my benefit because as a player, you're looking for your coach to kind of, guide you to success in the way that you think you should be. And if that means I need to sit you down one-on-one and write on a piece of paper, what you need to do, draw it out. Some people are visual learners. Some people can just listen. Those are the things I've been learning. Some of my kids, if I'm just talking like this, they can't, they're just like, I can't, like, they can't pay attention. And some kids can. And, those are the types of things that I had to learn and to be able to get them to do, the specific defense we're working on or understand a different skill. But it's been a huge, huge learning experience for me, and I'm really happy for my kids to have taught me that because it's been great.
This time off during this shutdown pandemic has really left everyone a bit reflective, but also thinking about how they can get better. You talked about those controllables, right? Energy, effort, and so many people have talked about that, which should really hammer home to everyone that it's important. Obviously, showing up on time. Are there other things that you found as you were trying to climb the ranks or that you've seen in players that have gotten better, things that you can work on, regardless of your position, that will help kind of close the gap from where you are to where you want to be, if that's JV varsity, the A club team, a starter, whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think especially right now, a lot of water polo players, like, if you're blessed to have a pool in your backyard, that's awesome, but most people aren't. And so something that I've told my players to do is just watch water polo. Now we have the internet, we have YouTube, we have, everything. We can watch professional athletes play. And I think the more you learn about our sport and the more you watch elite athletes and those that you admire play, the better you'll become as a player. And I was half and half. I played field growing up as well, and everyone laughs, but I really did. I did play field for my club team, but as I ended up being a goalie. But those years that I played as a field player, I learned so much about field player position that when I'm in the goal and I'm watching, oh, she has her hips this way, maybe she's doing a rollout. Oh, she's, faking this way, maybe she's going to lob, those kinds of things. And discussing with if you're a goalie like me, discussing with your field player teammates, what they see or what they're looking at when they watch you play goalie. Being open and vulnerable to the idea of, making mistakes and maybe taking some criticism, constructive criticism, is huge. So I think just being open to make mistakes and learn from each other, learn from your peers.
Some other important questions coming in here. KK Clark wants to know, what does Flop Friday mean to you?
It means everything to me. Flop Friday, as of now, I haven't done it in a while, sadly. But I mean, she knows more than anyone, training is so hard, the hardest thing I've ever done. And Flop Friday was always like the giggle at the end of the week, even though I had many giggles. You can ask Adam, but I mean, I'm never probably not giggling unless my face is in the water swimming. But that was just a huge, moment for our week, and we look forward to it every day. And I think, I found other ways to do my Flop Friday now since I'm not playing as much, but I love Flop Friday. I'll always love it. KK.
And you are the commissioner, so if anyone needs to have like a ruling, determined on if it's a legit Flop Friday, just tag Sami on social media.
Yes.
She'll weigh in with what went on. Another question: how do you defend the lob shot? So if you're a goalie, what's a good way to stop the lob?
I think that was my dad who asked that question, and
okay.
Yeah, he's joking because that is definitely, I will admit, one of my weaknesses. A lob shot is one of my weaknesses. So he jokes about it. I saw him write that in there. I knew he would. Well, the key to a good lob shot block is not to react straight up, which is sometimes what I do. So goalies out there, make sure you're going to the back of the cage and putting your arm up instead of reacting straight up. Thanks, Dad. I knew you would say something silly.
What type of shooters made you more versatile as a goalie?
Oh, well, luckily we are blessed with some of the most incredible shooters on the women's team, and so I got challenged every single day. And everyone has their strengths, but I mean, Courtney Mathewson, you guys probably know her. I hope you know her. She's got, the amazing upper right hand high corner shot that, in my brain, I'm like, I'm kind of expecting it, but it would always go in. It wasn't like I was always watching. Rachel Fatal, another one who shoots really well. Kylie Neuschel has the trickiest release. And I tell my players even now, it's not about shooting who can shoot the hardest. It's who can set up the shot the best. So, I mean, Maggie Sevens is excellent at this. She sets your teammates up really well. And so your whole setup, your fake, that all plays into, the goalies watching you and being able to follow a rhythm, and those kinds of things. So, I mean, Ashley, Gabby, and I were challenged every single day with the best shooters in the world. So we were lucky.
Some good questions coming in here. Sophie asks, what's your favorite memory at UCLA?
My favorite memory? Oh, man. That's a hard one. Oh, man. I can't pick one. Actually, okay, I'll pick one. So it was, technically I graduated in 2015, but I didn't get to walk across the stage because we had been traveling every summer. So one of my favorite memories was finally getting to walk across the stage at athlete graduation, even though it was like 2018. And I didn't know anyone I was walking with. I knew somebody.
Like, who is this lady?
Yeah, who's this old lady? But I walked across the stage and I did it, and I really, it felt like a conclusion to my time at UCLA, which was a very long time, I will admit, but that's one of my favorite memories. And my two coaches, Brandon and Molly, came back for the graduation because Adam Wright was the new coach. So it was just great. All my friends came. It was awesome.
Cammie wants to know, what's the one thing that we would be surprised to learn you keep in your water polo bag?
Oh, my water polo bag.
These are very, very inside baseball right now.
Yeah, surprised to know. Oh, a sewing kit.
Sewing kit, all right.
A little mini sewing kit. You never know. I've used it, and my grandma always has one in her purse, so I keep a sewing kit in my water polo bag. Very useful.
I think we have all of your siblings and parents in this chat right now. Your brother wants to know, who's your favorite sibling?
My favorite sibling is Speedo, our dog.
Fair. And you come from this freakishly athletic family. I mean, did you have a sense that as you're growing up, like, oh, we're all going to be Division I athletes?
I could not have predicted that all of us would be Division I athletes, but I did know that athletics were going to be a huge part of my family. They always have been. My grandparents were athletes on both sides. My parents were college athletes. So it was always a staple in our home and will forever be. a staple in our home. And yeah, we all play water polo now. My brother's off to play football. But sports have played a huge part in our lives. And yeah, we're just a sports family. We have, tennis tournaments. Well, we had to cancel the football games at Thanksgiving because it got a little rough. So we don't play football anymore, but yeah, super athletic all across the board.
By the way, he hasn't heard this yet, but this is my plan for Deacon Hill to raise water polo's popularity. He goes to Wisconsin. He plays 3 years. In the third year, he wins the Heisman. He's at the height of his popularity. And then with his final year of eligibility, he transfers to UCLA to play water polo for 1 year. And then after that, it's up to him, whatever he wants to do. But really get a big boost out of the Heisman Trophy winner playing water polo. So, Deacon, if you're up for it, let's make it happen.
I'm on board.
Molly wants to know Santa Barbara High School or Dos Pueblos High School?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to say go Chargers because I was a Charger. My little brother is the only one who to be a Don, and Molly loves to say once a Don, always a Don. So I haven't yet to wear actually, no, I did sport a Don sweatshirt at my brother's football games, but I will say Chargers.
Shree wants to know, since you're recently engaged, will there be a Christmas ham at your wedding?
If I had my choice, yes. But
yeah.
I think we'll have Christmas ham. I'll probably have it, on Christmas.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a special dinner. Christmas ham, my favorite. Hi, Sheree.
Sophie is back. What's your favorite meal that Cody cooks? Shout out Garnish and Gather.
Oh man, yeah. If you guys don't know, my little sister has you guys should know. She does lives for USAWP Water Polo, but Garnish and Gather. Definitely one of my recent favorites is the carrot cake. Courtney's carrot cake. It is to die for. It's so good. If you don't like carrot cake, you'll like this one, I promise. We've made it probably 3 times, I think. Yeah, it's so good. It's my favorite. And I've got a huge sweet tooth, so huge.
I've seen the photos. It looks fantastic.
Oh, it's so good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think we've exhausted all of your friends and family's questions, unless there's any others that are coming in here. Yeah, now it's getting very specific with different players at the team that you coach. Hey, just as we close out here, if anyone has any other perhaps broader appeal questions for Sami, we're about to get into maybe what happened in 4th grade. So, as you've been forced away from the pool, I imagine this is the longest you've been away from a pool, coaching or playing in a very, very long time. What are you missing most about it? Why are you excited to get back to it when the time arrives?
I think for me, being inside is hard. I'm used to being outside on the pool deck from 8 a.m. till 9 p.m. So I think just being outside and being surrounded by, my players and my staff and everyone who I love so much. And I'm really, really eager to get back to that and having that routine because I'm sure everyone on here knows, like, during the quarantine, it's really hard to stick to a routine and create a routine that's, beneficial for what you're doing. So that's the biggest thing, I think, being back on my routine and what I do every day and not feeling so uncertain about what's going to happen. But I'm really hopeful and I'm excited to get back on the pool deck with all my friends and definitely miss the sunshine. So.
One more coming in here. What was your favorite place to travel when you were playing water polo?
Oh, this is a popular question. Some of my favorites, it's hard to pick one, but Tokyo is amazing. We flew over there for a 10-day training camp with the Japanese national team at the time. We took a bunch of girls and it was kind of just a training trip and we had so much fun exploring. And also Budapest was hands down one of my favorites. I loved it there. I hope to go back one day just because it has so much history and I just loved walking around. So yeah, Tokyo, Budapest, those are 2 of my favorites.
Are you going to get back and play Masters in the future? Will we see you like FINA Masters, that sort of stuff down the road?
I hope so. I hope to be getting back in the pool. I know my players ask me every day to get in. And I really hope to get back to playing because I miss it all the time. And so that's my eventual goal. The eventual goal is to get back in.
Perfect. Sami, this is always fun to talk to you. Hopefully, we get to see you in person soon once all this dies down and we get back to playing water polo.
Yeah, I know. I miss you so much. I'm so excited to be around the pool deck again. And yeah, until then, I'll see you on social media. And I'm just, hanging out.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Sami. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
of course. Bye, everyone.